Nick Ball walked in as a champion and walked out without a belt, bruised and surrounded by chaos, corner confrontations, and anger from the crowd. But loss is where fighters get discovered. Here is an objective fact. In the storm, Nick showed heart, speed, and savage flurries. Perhaps he stayed in the pocket too long and absorbed too many body shots. Now the story isn't ignorance, it's evolution, because a great defeat can open the door for a great comeback. Let's talk about it. Broken but better. The evolution of Nick Ball starts now. Let me explain. So Nick Ball loses the fight and loses the title. And in that sense, there is sadness from his perspective. But remember this, losses are an opportunity to grow. And this is from what we would call a stoic perspective. Let me say that again. Losses are opportunity to grow. Now, before the fight, we had the hand wraps controversy. And after the fight, we had post-tension and boos from the crowd and a lot of hostility. Here's a question. Why did Nick Ball's team confront the opposition's corner? Why were there drinks thrown by the crowd? If that premise is true, then this is very immature and dangerous. In one sense, I love the passion of the crowd, but I don't enjoy the ignorance. Now, there's something that we should understand, and that boxing/fighting is emotional, it's instinctive, and therefore people get passionate. Nick's team, they are defending their man. What does that say about them? Well, that says that they have loyalty. Loyalty is a good thing, primarily. Perhaps there's a thin line between loyalty and irrational actions because you're backing your guy. And I get it. It's good when people back you, but it's bad when the actions come from ignorance. And let's not forget, and this should have been the focal point or one of the focal points. Nick Ball fought like a champion. Let's try not to remember the ignorance. Let's remember the character, the passion, putting your heart and soul in the ring and defending like a true champion. Now, before the fight, there was the hand wrap issue, which came up in the media after the fight. Now, think of this. Hand wraps are done, from my understanding, under supervision. Or under observation. So typically, when you're getting your hand wraps, you are observed by the commission and you're observed by someone in the other corner. So why was this not done? Or why was the hand wraps done without the observation of someone from the other corner? To me, from an outsider looking in, because there might have been a rational explanation, it looks at best amateurish and at worst suspicious. Why would it look suspicious? Well, for historical reference, I would give you the Shane Mosley Margarita fight. And Margarita, I believe that was the name, he had hand wraps that were illegal. And this was spotted by Shane Mosley's trainer before the fight. And because they were spotted by the trainer, they had to make adjustments. They had to wrap their hands properly, for want of a better word. So my understanding, the legal implications here is that both camps are allowed to be present when hand wraps are being done. So if John is getting his hand wraps, his opponent's team or someone from the team is allowed to come in and observe it. Now, it's important to remember that obviously there was no proof of any cheating, but Manny Robles, the trainer of Brandon Figueroa, did not observe the hand wraps. He did not observe the hand wraps, and he was understandably upset about this. Now, remember, the commission would have observed the hand wrapping. However, I feel in hindsight, there needs to just be a clear policy around these things. What is agreed and what is followed. Now, just a quick disclaimer, because we're going to go into the fight and then we're going to talk about what Nick Ball does next. But as a quick disclaimer, before we go into the fight, I'll be referring to Brandon Figueroa as Brandon. So let's talk about the fight. We're going to briefly talk about this. So in round one, now when I saw the challenger, Brandon, come out southpaw, so he came out southpaw, that's right foot forward, tall, and he was trying a counter left, I thought to myself, okay, this has the potential to be very tough. But at the same time, Nick Ball landed a beautiful left uppercut. So from a Nick Ball perspective, that was very promising. Now, Nick Ball is very explosive, and this is very good for stealing rounds because it catches the judge's eye. And one thing I noticed is that Nick Ball is bending his knees a lot, which is giving him a lower center of gravity. And at one point, he was quadrupling up with the right hand. And this was nice work from Nick Ball. So I felt that this first round, there were some positive implications. In the second round, Nick Ball's explosiveness is eye-catching. When he's putting the punches together, it looks good. It's the speed and the power, and it's the investment that he puts into his punches. Brandon is throwing body punches, but he's putting less power into the punches. He's more methodical. So you got like explosive, and then you got methodical. Now, there was a moment where Brandon dips under a left hook, and he just uses some beautiful footwork to spin Nick Ball. So that was some nice boxing IQ from Brandon. Heading into round four, Nick Ball is staying in the pocket. So now we're getting a bit of a difference, because before you had like Nick Ball, he was moving around, bending his knees and then throwing quick punches and then getting out of range. But now he's starting to stay in the pocket, and he's starting to hold a little bit and using the push. So he's trying to dominate the position. And my question at this point is he staying in the pocket too long? And by staying in the pocket for longer, who is benefiting, Nick Ball or Brandon? In round five, I've noticed this little pattern where Brandon is like going orthodox, providing a different angle for the punches, and then he reverts back to southpaw. So I've just noticed that shift in his technique. Now at mid-range, Brandon is using the jab, particularly from the orthodox position. And the fight is now going from mid-range to inside the pocket. So for mid-range, Brandon is using the jab, and then inside the pocket, you know, he's digging methodically to the body, and then every now and then Nick Ball will explode. So let's fast forward to round seven. Now Brandon again is going orthodox. So this is clearly a part of his boxing identity. Nick does a nice counter right hand trap. Very nice. So he's going back to the ropes, and then he times a counter. But there's a significant difference here, because what's happening now is that Brandon is starting to push Nick Ball to the ropes. So he's starting to get a position of dominance. And I think that is significant, because it looks like Nick Ball is struggling to contend physically with Brandon at this point, which leads to the question, is the bodywork starting to take its toll? And does Nick Ball, does he need to make adjustments? And if he does need to make adjustments, can he make the adjustments? Does he have enough energy to make the adjustments? So in round eight, there's a beautiful flurry from Nick Ball. He just punches real authority and speed, and the punches look strong. And again, this type of method can enable you to steal rounds. Brandon is throwing less powerful punches, but he is more consistent. Now, the change here from round seven is that Nick Ball is now trying to regain the center position. So this shows good spatial awareness, good ring IQ. He's clearly getting a second wind, and he's trying to contend in this area. Also, Nick Ball is trying to reestablish the jab, which is a positive thing. So now we're fast forward to round 10, as Nick Ball is using footwork. So we've had like a transition in the rhythm of the fight. So we've gone from mid-range to the pocket. And now we've gone from the pocket to mid-range to now some more outside fighting. And the outside fighting is being dominated by Nick Ball. He's trying to get in and get out. And again, there is a domination battle in the clinch. So Nick Ball is trying to compete for that dominating position. Now in round 12, it's a close fight. It could go either way. However, Brandon comes out, and now he's coming out with real authority. He's bending his knees, and it looks like he's looking to punch hard. And now he's looking to punch from the southpaw position, and he's looking for the counter left, but he's looking for the strong counter left. So here, as Brandon's coming forward, a counter left catches Nick Ball and puts him on the floor. Now, like a champion, because many people could have just stayed down, but Nick Paul, his reaction is to get back up. So big respect. He gets back up. But at this point, Brandon has the momentum. He knows what to do here. He punches hard, and, you know, Brandon has no chance. Sorry, Nick Paul has no chance to survive. And the referee rightfully stops the fight. And with that, we have a new champion. Now, there are some important things to recognize in this sequence of the stoppage. So the left hand, I believe, lands because the southpaw position creates a different angle. If he was in the orthodox position, the left hook doesn't land because then the left comes from a different angle. So it was that southpaw position that was part of the cause. The second part of the cause was that Brandon was punching methodically, but he wasn't putting the full viciousness on his shots. So now he's looking to counterpunch. He's bending his knees more. So he's reverted back to southpaw. He's bending his knees. He's punching harder, and the southpaw position creates the angle. He's putting more venom on the punches, and this was the beginning of the end. So that transition back to southpaw and looking for that left-hand counter, that was a vital element in this fight. Now, once the stoppage happens, there is celebration, as you could understand. There's tension, and then there's this real animosity between both camps, which is really unfortunate. And then you had the crowd reaction, which again was unfortunate, but I don't want to focus on that. What I do want to focus on is Nick Paul, because here's an important point. A loss is an opportunity to get back. It's an opportunity to acknowledge the good and to recognize the improvements, because often we show our greatness, not in how we accept victory, but more importantly, on how we accept defeat and how we come back from defeat. There was a lot of good stuff from Nick Paul in this fight. He showed heart, he showed good footwork, he showed fast flurries, he showed good spatial awareness, and at times he showed good ring IQ. Maybe, just maybe, he stayed in the pocket too long or was not effective enough in the pocket. Perhaps he could have countered the body work, or he himself could have invested more in the body. Maybe he should have used the jab more. It's important at this point that Nick Paul and his team study the tapes, develop as a boxer, and come back even stronger. And here's an important thing. Many boxers have come back from losses. Ali, he came back from losses. George Foreman came back from losses. Evander Holyfield came back from losses. Lennox Lewis came back from losses. Sugar Ray Leonard came back from losses. There's a long list of boxers that have lost and that have come back. What does that mean? That means that there's a blueprint. Success leaves clues. So successful comebacks, if you analyze those successful comebacks, they leave clues. And clearly that videotape of that fight will leave clues on what Nick Paul did well and what Nick Paul did badly. So hopefully, this situation, which must be a terrible, emotionally, it must be very difficult for Nick Paul to accept this. But hopefully, from the long perspective, this will be a redemption story, and Nick Paul will come back stronger, he'll come back faster, and hopefully he'll be able to regain that championship. Also, big respect to Brandon Figueroa. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. He went to the champion's backyard and he pulled off a win, and it was a spectacular win, a knockout in the final round. It will be very interesting to see his progression. Also, big respect to his trainer. For those that may not know, this was the man who trained Andy Ruiz for the Anthony Joshua fight, the first Anthony Joshua fight. And that's a fight where Andy Ruiz looked absolutely spectacular. So congratulations to Brandon Figueroa, and also congratulations to the trainer and congratulations to the team. So that's the end of the video. I'm trying to build a digital boxing community. So I'm interested in your comments. I'm interested in your questions. and I'm interested in your observations. Now, if you want to support the channel, simply like and subscribe. And if you want to watch more content, click here or click here. Now, thank you for your time. It is much appreciated. Peace.